All right, I want you guys to welcome to the show Miss Shenita James. Hey there.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm very well. How are you, Queen?
I'm good.
I learned about your book, Not Just Another Pretty Face. I really can't even recall if I learned about it on Clubhouse. Are you on Clubhouse?
Yes.
Okay, so it was probably on Clubhouse. You were in a room, and maybe they were talking about childhood abuse, sexual abuse, molestation, and you mentioned your book. I looked it up. I believe I found you on Instagram and sent you a DM, and that was probably, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months ago, something like that.
Mhm.
So who is Shenita James?
Well, I'm an author. Um, I'm currently investigator with Child Protective Services. I'm a mother. I'm a grandmother, and I currently got a position as a substance abuse counselor.
Wow. So I just want to show folks this is your book. And for people listening, her book is Not Just Another Pretty Face. You can find it on Amazon. She also has a website, which is IamShanitaJames.com. So check out her website. Her story is, um, I don't know, her story is devastating. I was reading the book and I was like, who has gone through so much torture? And I'm sure I know people in my own life, and I just never knew that they went through some of the things that you described in your book. Because as you were describing in one part of the book, you were in high school, I believe, and the girls were laughing about sex, and they called you a virgin, and you said, if only they knew my past. So you told me who Shanita James is on paper. Who is Shanita James?
Who am I now?
Yeah.
Well, I definitely would say I'm an overcomer of many things. I learned to love myself unconditionally. And I also learned that my past does not determine who I am. It does not define me. And oftentimes we hold our past against us and we're not able to actually forgive ourselves. We keep right on bringing the past with us when God is trying to take us to, higher heights. But we can't get there because we're holding on to the past and not letting it go.
So, folks, you have to order her book to understand what she means by past. But of course, I cannot conduct this interview without referencing some of the points in the book. And some of the things in the Black community that we talk about includes a topic that we label generational curses. Generational curses are those things that we pass down from generation to generation. And when we do that, at times I don't think we realize we're doing that. We don't know. And as people, you're originally from North Carolina, correct?
Yes.
And your family, your grandparents, were they born in North Carolina or where were they born?
North Carolina.
And so, do you know, is your family originally from North Carolina? Was your family slaves in North Carolina, or were you guys slaves in some other part of the South?
No, I can't recall my actual grandparents being slaves, but what I have learned is unconsciously we like for me and for my mom as well, we were raising children from a broken place. And
Right.
when you try to raise children from a broken place, when you're broken, unconsciously you teach those children how to be broken and bitter. And I found myself doing that very same thing. Like, even though they didn't actually experience the things that I experienced, mentally they did. Do that make sense?
Yeah.
Because like I had all this bitter and anger inside of me, and I was passing it along to them. And it wasn't until I came to a place of self-reflection where I had to press pause and be like, wait a minute, what am I doing? So I feel like you can't fully raise children to be their best if you're broken yourself, because you're going to teach those children unconsciously how to be broken.
And it starts in the womb. It starts in the womb. When women are pregnant, our energy, we pass that energy to our babies. You know, it goes right into the placenta. All of those negative feelings, those thoughts, that energy, we pass it to our baby while we're pregnant, those 9 months. If you're pregnant a full 9 months, but during the time of pregnancy, you're passing on to your baby all of those, your wounded spirit, basically. And you mentioned that you were a mother of four by the time you were 20. I'm going to add that you were a mother of four by four different men by the time you were 20.
Yes. And during that time, I was looking for somebody to save me from me, if that makes sense. So it was like a part of me was yearning for that father figure and to get something like a fulfillment that I didn't experience. And that was love. I didn't feel like I was loved. I didn't feel like my father protected me like he should have. So I was looking for love in all the wrong places. And, you know, with the children, I was like, well, if I have children, they're going to love me no matter what. And that's what I did. I was looking for those men to save me from me.
Yeah. Your book, it states Shanita takes readers on a journey through her past, recounting her many traumatic experiences and how they scarred her soul. Prepare to witness the inhumane cruelties firsthand that many women suffer at the hands of those they trust and look to for love and security. And it also states for some people, beauty is a blessing. For some, it can be a curse. That was the case with Shanita, who was a victim of childhood sexual abuse growing up. Did you change the names of the characters in your book?
I did.
Jeffrey was a real fucking case, basket case. Like, excuse my cursing, guys. I'm so sorry for the profanity. When you read this book, Jeffrey, you called him a monster. He was a despicable, disgusting, nasty, dirty ass dog is what he was so much more than a monster. I mean, where do you know where is he now? Where is Jeffrey?
I haven't had contact with him since I was little, since I was younger. But after revealing, you know, what he had did to me and my sister, he also had nieces that he done the same thing to.
Did he go to
And
jail? Did he go to prison?
no, because back then we were taught what goes on in my house stays in my house. So
Yeah,
even though the community knew about it, nobody said anything. They didn't do anything. And
yeah.
where I was strong enough to overcome it and forgive him, my sister wasn't. She actually had an affair with him from the time it started when she was 10
Right.
until she was 30. And I didn't include that part in the book because that's her story. But at the age of 18, they put my mom out, my mom and my little brother.
Yeah,
And
that's in the book.
I didn't go into, you know, real details.
Yeah.
And then they actually had an affair. And she's mentally she's gone from that today. Like she only dates men that are way younger than her. And she feel like she has to buy them. But that was because of what he taught her. And she ended up falling in love with her molester.
Yeah. So, guys, get this book. Shanita's mother met a man. In the book, he's called Jeffrey. He moved them into his house because it was not a home. He moved them into the house and created this facade like he was going to take care of them. And your mother, you described her as, you said her head was in the sand. She pretended not to see so many obvious things. There was one part of the book where you lay outside her bedroom on the floor the next morning after Jeffrey had molested you, and she told you get up off the floor. You made yourself sick several times. Guys, you have to get this book. I started reading it and I couldn't stop. I finished it in one sitting. Where's your mother?
She's still around. She's still living. And as I mentioned in the book, I didn't realize this until I got older and went on a self-reflection journey, that my mom couldn't help me because she couldn't help herself. So when I came out with my story of what was happening to me and what happened to me in my past, she had siblings and cousins where my grandfather actually molested them.
Yeah.
And my grandmother knew about it and she didn't do anything. So she repeated that same cycle. She didn't know how to help us because her mom didn't help her. It was
That's right.
like, you pray and you forget about it.
Yeah, those are those generational curses that are in the Black family, man. And so, and that's the next point I was going to make, is that your mom was probably abused growing up herself.
Hmm.
Did she ever admit to you being sexually abused?
She has, along with her siblings, her sisters.
So it wasn't just her siblings who were abused by the grandfather, or nieces and nephews who were abused by the grandfather. Your mother was a part of that also.
I'm sorry about that. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and so, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I'm talking to Miss Shanita James today, Sunday, October 10th, which is World Mental Health Day. And we're having a conversation about childhood abuse and sexual molestation. And we're talking about this because so many of us see people and have friends and coworkers or folks we interact with who present angry, who present at times to be confused, who appear to be lost, who may have a life that you don't agree with. Meaning, when I say a life, I'm sure plenty of people scoffed at you being 20 with 4 kids by 4 different fathers. But most of the time, people don't ask the question, what's underneath? What's underneath all of the behaviors? What are the thoughts and the emotions, or what's in the past? What happened in that person's childhood? The other day on Instagram, I made a post about what's in a relationship. And in that post, I mentioned childhood traumas. I mentioned a person's relationship with their parent and how they see their mother. Things, all of those things are important. So, guys, when you're out here and you're meeting people and they have a story that's so much different than your own story, or a story that we consider to be unbecoming, show grace, show love, because oftentimes there's something behind that story. And when you get not just another pretty face, authored and written by Shenita James, it brings all that stuff to light and makes you appreciate it and understand it. So your mother's still living. You guys have had open, full conversations about the things that happened to you at the hands of her boyfriend.
Yes.
Does your sister, your oldest sister, the young lady who had an affair with Jeffrey, well, let me back up, who was raped and molested and abused by Jeffrey for really 20 years, because no child can make a decision to be in a relationship. No child can consent to sexual relations, whether it's oral sex, making out, intercourse, whatever the case may be. No child can give consent for that. And you said your sister began being raped and molested by this dude at the age of 10. So by the time she was 18, which is what is deemed old enough to give consent in many states, although some states is 16, it's 17, but we'll say 18. By that point, her mind was so battered. Like, I can't imagine being a 10-year-old girl being sexually involved with a grown man, being raped by a man every day.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was horrible for her because in the beginning she told my mom, what he was doing, and for some reason my mom, I don't know if she just did not believe her or she didn't want to believe her, because he portrayed himself to be so nice and kind and helping. But then when I told her, she actually believed me. But she also told me not to tell anybody because I would be taken away. Social service would come and take me away from her. So I endured it as long as I could. And then when I got tired of it, I had to tell.
now Your sister and your mother, do they talk? Do they communicate? Are they friends? Have they
They
reconciled?
they talk, but my sister has a hard time forgiving my mom for that. She has a very hard time. But my mom tries to put the past behind her. And we had a conversation, and she did say to me that, it will always be a hole in her heart because she felt like she failed her girls. So she's really bothered by it. I know that it hurts her.
Where's your brother?
He's still living. He lives here in the same town as I.
Are you guys still close?
Hmm. Yes, we're very close.
How's he doing? Is he in a relationship? Has he had children?
He has two children, but his relationships has been rocky, and I think it's mainly because how he was neglected by my mom. So what I learned a lot of times, like if they don't get that nurturing by their mother, then they look for it in women, and when they don't get it, it makes them angry and bitter with the woman, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Because they blame women. Like your parents, your mom and your dad supposed to be the people that love you and protect you no matter what. So when you don't have that and when they fail you, it's like you lose all trust in everybody.
Yeah. There's nothing better than a mother's love. Nothing compares to a mother's love. And when you ain't got it, that creates a lot of holes inside of your life. A lot of things won't be right. So in chapter six is titled Dad's House. And the section is I'm running away. Mom finally found a place to live. When she came to pick us up, she had the brightest smile on her face. She was proud that she had fulfilled her promise to us. However, her happiness and joy vanished after my dad told her she could not take me with her. The two of them bickered back and forth, blaming each other for the things done to me. You just want to keep them so you won't have to pay child support, Mom shouted. You don't want them. You just want my check and food stamps, Dad fired back. Neither of them thought about the fact that their words would have lasting effects on their children's self-esteem. They didn't care that we were present and listening. Were they speaking the truth? I think that happens a lot with kids who have parents who are separated. Child support comes into play, money comes into play. Women use kids as pawns and alienating the father. And I know you lived with your father for a little while, but what was interesting, and as a psychiatrist for me, I wasn't surprised to see that you had, when your father would badmouth your mother or say negative things about your mother, you would go on the defensive for your mom.
Yes, because to me, in my eyes at the time, I felt like my mom could do no wrong, even though the things that she done, I didn't agree with. I just wanted her to be home, to just be there with us to protect us. And so when I heard them say all those things about her, it made me resent them even more. And I included in the book, although he removed me from that situation, from the environment, it was a better environment, it was a better house. His brother was doing the same thing, and
Yeah.
at that point, I was so afraid to tell it. Like I wouldn't tell anyone, but my behavior, I act out the rage that I was feeling on the inside. When I would go to school, I was so rebellious. I remember I was in the seventh grade, and the teacher was telling us to, get our things up, and I would jump on the desk. Like I would just do anything for that attention and to release the anger that I was feeling.
Yeah, so that's a lesson, to folks watching or listening later. The lesson here is this: if your child is acting out, more than likely there is a reason. You have to investigate. You have to be a supportive listening ear. You have to listen to them. You have to give them that support. Give them the sounding board to share whatever's going on in their world at the time, especially if your child goes from being, what we call a normal, average type kid doing average type children type stuff. But when they become angry and become enraged, that's a red flag that something ain't right in their life.
Mhm.
Now, you didn't want to tell your dad that Jeffrey was molesting you.
I didn't know how to tell him. Like during that time, and I didn't want to talk about it because when I talked about it, and that mean I had to relive it. Like I had to relive those emotions of the things that he was doing. So I just, and he never asked. Like he never asked in detail, what those things were. What did he actually do? But I didn't want to tell it either. Like I didn't. I just wanted to put it in the back of my mind so I wouldn't think about it.
When your father kicked you out, because he kicked you out, he
Mhm.
told you, you know what, you got to get out of here. I'm taking you to your mama. You're a whore. You're going to end up pregnant. All those evil things he spoke into existence for you, as opposed to hugging you tight and saying, I love you. See, the thing that we learn, I think, in the Black community, and this dates back to slavery. We learn not to love, but to use anger and hate to try to remedy a situation. We use anger and hate to try to remedy a situation as opposed to love.
Mhm.
And so when your father packed you up to go back to your mother's house, it was before that point. When you moved in with him, he knew about what was going on. He had heard about what happened to you, and he called or came to pick you up and said, you can't live here anymore. I'm taking you home with me.
Mhm.
Because it was a little vague in your book. You were explaining that he heard that you had been molested. Did he
Mhm.
know to what extent you were molested?
He didn't know. He didn't know the extent to what everything that had transpired. He didn't know.
And when he found out later, when his girlfriend took you to the gynecology office and they said she has had sex, she's had the intercourse, did he realize that was because of Jeffrey?
No, he thought I was messing with the younger boys that was in the neighborhood, and I hated him for that. I hated him for that because he took me from my mom, put me in the place with my grandparents. His brother was doing the same thing, but they had all this anger towards my mom. And then for me to be, I wasn't even thinking about boys at that point. And for him to not even ask, like, who, what, when, that made me want to kill myself. Like, I hated him for that. I actually hated him for that.
Yeah, I can understand why. Because communication, we need communication in all relationships, not just our personal relationships with our boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, and wives, or whatever, the friend with benefits. We need effective communications and communication in our homes as well.
Mhm.
So that was an opportunity when they took you to the gynecologist for your father to sit down with you and ask you about the situation with Jeffrey. His first assumption should have been, my baby girl has been raped by this maniac that she lived with her mother.
Well, see, my grandmother had put in his mind that I was pregnant because I would come home every day from school and I would be exhausted. So I would just want to
Mhm.
sleep because I was up all night thinking that, praying that my uncle wouldn't come in the room and do what he done. They didn't know these things. So by the time I got home from school, I just wanted to go to sleep. So she was older. She was stuck in her ways. So to her, that symbolized that I must be pregnant. And she
Mm-mm.
convinced them to take me to the doctor to get tested to see
Yeah.
if I was pregnant.
Now, how old was your uncle at the time that he was touching you inappropriately?
He had to been at least, because he's about 70 now, so he had to been at least in his early 40s.
Was this your great uncle or this was your father's brother?
My father's brother.
And so, did you ever tell your father that his brother did this to you before publishing this book?
I told him once I got grown, right before I started to write. So he knew probably about 2-3 years before. But I had cousins, my cousins that was around the same age as I. They knew what was going on, but they didn't. Kids don't share that information. Like if you confide in a child, they're not gonna just tell that.
Yeah. What was your father's response when you told him?
He cried. He cried, and I think a lot of it he felt guilty, I told him how I felt, because when he put me out, I just prayed for a baby. Like, God, my dad, he put me out. He called me all these names. My mom is not here. So I prayed. I said, God, if you give me a baby, I
Yeah.
know, and I was 13. I said, I know that this baby is going to just love me unconditionally. And I'm going to pour all that love that I'm looking for into my child. And so that's what I did. I prayed for my baby, and at 13, I was pregnant by a 21-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. And even the community kept that hush. Your mom told him, if you don't claim this child, I'll make your life hell or whatever. And he came back, and there you entered another world of just horror, just devastation with another maniac. He was a maniac as well. What was his name? Well, you changed the name, but Fred, wasn't he Fred? That was Fred. So, what's your relationship like today with your father?
We talk, we get along. Because I had to let that go, because if I didn't, it was gonna consume me. So
Yeah.
I had to go and forgive all of them, not for them, but for me, because I didn't want to be bitter. I wanted a healthy relationship, and I was blaming other people who had nothing to do with my upbringing or my past. I was inflicting my toxin into them, and it wasn't healthy.
Yeah. How old is your father now?
He's 58.
58. You're 40. So he was 17.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Babies having babies. And this is what perpetuates these generational curses, when folks have children young and they don't know any better. They don't know how to raise a child. They're not taught love. They don't grow up with love in their household. And um, traumas occur in their life growing up. They pass those things on to their own children.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm-mm. And so your four children, how old are they?
Now they're 21, 23, 25, and 27.
Have they read your book?
No, they don't want it. They know the story, some of it, but they don't want to read it,
Not yet, huh?
because they don't want to be angry with nobody. They
Yeah.
don't want to be angry. So no, they haven't read it.
Did your mom read it?
Mm-hmm.
What about your father?
Well, he has a copy. I don't know if he actually read it.
You know,
Then for me, it was like, I felt being pretty was a curse, because you attract all these people that had the men that have alternative motives. They just looking at the out appearance. So if you're already weak, you'll fall for. I was falling for the sweet nothings that they said to me. And then the females, they would think, because I didn't trust people, so I was kind of like a loner. I didn't want to be around people or whatever. So they took that as I was stuck up, and they had no idea. They
the
had no idea
the
what I was going
nightmare,
through.
the
The,
nightmare you were
the
living.
anxiety, the depression. They had no idea that I was enduring all these things. Like, it wasn't that I didn't want to hang out with them and be friends with them. I had anxiety. I was afraid. I was scared.
Yeah.
Then when I was, suffering from depression, I only went out to go to work, go to school, and come back home. And they didn't realize that. So, and I was talking to a doctor, and I was telling him, I was all excited. I was telling him that I wanted to write a book and, tell my story. And I have that in the book. And he said to me, that's how I got the title, Not Just Another Pretty Face. He said to me, unless you go back to school and get your degree, you're gonna be nothing but a pretty face with a sad story. And I was like, did he just say that to me? But that stuck in my head. So I'm like, I am more than just a pretty face. That's not all that I am. So,
What kind of doctor was that told you that?
a trauma surgeon.
Yikes. Maybe that was his way of trying to motivate you to get your degree.
Yeah, and I think too where he has a lot of he had a lot of education, so education was important. And from his colleague, because he said, unless you get that, my colleagues will chew you out. They would chew you up and spit you out. So I understood what he was saying about how credentials are important. However,
Yeah.
um, if you it's more to it. If you do your research, not everybody that writes a book has a degree in English. Some of them don't even have a degree at all.
Most
It's
people
about
who write books are not English majors or don't have degrees. It's just anyone can write a book.
and
Everyone has
he
a story.
and he didn't understand that. Like it was about connecting with your niche, telling your story, doing your research. But at the same time, I felt as if I had to go back and get a degree. So I thought about it. I was like, well, what do I want to get a degree in? And then, social work was the first thing that came to mind. And then, I was telling people, it's like, they don't make no money. But at this point, it wasn't about the money. I felt like it was bigger than me. It was about if I could help save one child, if I
Mhm.
can be that voice for one child, then I felt like enough money could not pay me. It cannot be enough money paid to me to be able to do that. And so that is what drives my passion every day, is to help somebody that looked like me, went through what I went through, afraid to talk, afraid to tell it, but let them know, you know, your beginning is not your end.
Right, right. So you're a social worker now.
Yes,
Did you say that when I asked you in the beginning who was Shanita James?
I
No,
did. I
I don't think
Well,
so.
I don't think you was recording then, because I said that I said that I'm an investigator for a
Yeah,
child
that was
service.
that was
Oh,
offline
I'm
conversation.
sorry. I'm sorry.
So tell folks who professionally who is Shanita James. So you got your GED. So when you read the book, you'll see that she goes back to school. She earns her GED in record time. You did well on the test. You were always a smart girl. You were just traumatized
I was just
growing
traumatized.
up.
The highest grade that I actually completed was the 8th grade.
Yeah.
After that, I didn't have no education, but I knew that I wanted better for my children. Like I was like, I got to do this for my children, because I
Right.
refused to let them bring them up how I was raised them how I was raised. So I decided to go back and get my GED. You know how people say, I got it out the mud. I
Yeah.
literally got it out the mud. Like nobody gave me anything. So I went back. I got my GED, and that wasn't enough. So I went back to a community college. I got my associates in applied science. So I became a medical laboratory technician. I worked in the lab for maybe 5 years, but I just felt like my purpose and my calling was bigger than that. So when I started talking to, the surgeon, having conversations with him, and he was trying to get me to, go deeper and to find a degree, I was like, I got to go back and help people like myself. And
Okay.
that's how
So
I
see,
ended
he
up.
motivated you. He motivated
He
you to
did.
do
I guess it
more.
was the harsh words, like,
Yeah.
you don't want to hear the truth. And sometimes people don't sugarcoat stuff.
Yeah.
So
And
he did
especially
motivate me.
surgeons, they don't sugarcoat much.
Yeah, so that's how I ended up becoming a social worker, and I love what I do. I love it, and oftentimes they'll say, Shanita, how can you connect with them? And my colleagues, like my coworkers, they had no idea who Shanita was and what I've been through, and it would bother me sometimes to be in conversation, just hear certain things that they would say about certain kids, and I'm like, this was me. This is how they felt about me. Because I'm looking at myself, I'm looking at the child in them in me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is how they felt. And I felt like the doctors, the social workers, the teacher, I felt like all of them had failed me. And it could have been because they wasn't trauma informed. They didn't know what childhood trauma looked like. I think that played a lot, had a lot to do with it as well. And probably the timing back then in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're 41, so you were born in,
80.
okay. I was gonna say I'm 45. I kind of lost my age for a second. I'm 45 or 46. I'm 45, yes.
Mhm.
So how long have you been a social worker?
I actually graduated last year. And before then, I was in this program called the Family Self Sufficient Program when I was getting my associate's degree. And I was on Section 8. And I remember going in one day for recertification. And my worker asked me, he was like, well, what are your goals? And I was telling him my goals. He was like, shut my door. So I closed the door. And he said, let me tell you about a program that I want you to apply for because you're eligible. So the program, like you be on the program from 5 to 7 years, and whatever amount in rent that you pay, they match it and put it in an escrow account. So he said, how much he was like, let me look at your records. How much are you paying for rent? So man, during that time, I think I was paying like $500. He said, I want you to max out your vouchers, which was like 620. So I was like, I can't afford that. And he was like, increase your hours at work. So that's what I did. I increased my hours at work, and I went and got a place that was 620.
Mm-hmm.
So every amount that I paid, the 620, they matched it in a escrow account. And the program consists of rebuilding your credit, teaching you about finance and all that stuff. When I graduated with my associate's degree, they awarded me a check for almost $20,000.
That was money they matched and put in your escrow account?
Yes. And a lot of people, they don't tell a lot of people about those resources. So it's like so many people that live in poverty that don't know, like they don't know about those programs, that it's actually resources out there if you want to be helped,
Yeah.
that would actually help you. So I thought that was amazing. So I felt like I had to share and learn about the resources in our community so I'll be able to help those people as well.
Gotcha. Wow, that's awesome. And congratulations on your graduation last year.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you're working in social work and you said you're a child protective caseworker?
I'm an investigator. So we get a report of a child that has been allegedly abused or neglected. We go and we investigate it to see if the allegations are in fact true. After we investigate it, we come and we do an assessment, and we do a treatment plan to see how can we keep the child safe, how can we make the family better. So I do that, and actually, I started another job as a substance abuse counselor October the 25th. So I'm excited about that.
Thank you for being a part of the Brain Love mental health team. We need more of us.
Yeah.
So you'll help folks with substance abuse and you'll continue helping children also?
Mm-hmm. And the thing that that you didn't mention in the book was we talked about generational curses.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my daughter, I was dating a guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually walked in
Yep.
and witnessed what he was about to do to my daughter.
Yeah.
And that is how I ended up messing with the married man, because at that point, I just, I hated everybody. Like, I just felt like everybody was against me. And I'm like, why
Yep.
should I keep doing right and, loving people no matter what, if these things right here continue to happen?
Yeah.
So,
And,
and
and
that was,
listen, for folks listening, put people on notice. If you know you have a predator in your family who preys on children, who takes advantage of children, little boys, girls, young women, put them on notice. Let folks know. Report it.
Mhm.
Report it. That's the only way these people will become exposed and could potentially get some help for their sick brains. Now, a child molester is probably one of the hardest things in mental health for us to remedy, to help, because when someone has, and I'm not saying that they can't be helped, but it really takes full-time dedication from that person to want to get help. Look at R. Kelly. And I still don't think R. Kelly thinks he's done anything wrong. I still think R. Kelly I don't think he's claiming that anything is wrong in what he did with Aaliyah and all these other young girls. So if you have folks in your home and your family who have done this type of crap, you have to report it. Keep other kids safe. You heard Ms. James mention how she found out the uncle was doing this to other cousins. The grandfather had done it to other family members. Oftentimes, these predators have, they've done this, they perpetrated these acts on other children in the family. So it's important for us to uncover these dirty little secrets that exist in our families and to talk to our children about it. Now, you brought up your daughter, and there was something in the book where you asked your daughter, why didn't you tell me? And you said your daughter said to you, because you told me if anyone ever put their hands on me, you would kill them and you would go to jail. And you made such a great point about we have to be careful in how we explain things to our children, because children at that age are very concrete and literal. She didn't want you to go to jail. So she was willing to continue to endure these visits from your boyfriend at night so that her mama wouldn't go to jail.
And I thought that I was doing right by telling her, like, I'm going to believe you. But I didn't know, I was messing her up at the same time where she would be afraid to lose me. So she kept quiet.
Thank God that the Lord gave you that premonition that night of you seeing a man walking into your daughter's room. Thank the Lord for that. I know in the book you asked her how far had it gone, and I think he was just fondling and touching on her. He had not penetrated her or raped her at that point.
Well, actually, I don't know how far it went. I did get her into counseling, but I never asked her everything that he done. I didn't want to know. Because mentally, I didn't know what it would do to me to know that this man, because I know I'm a victim, so I know what it felt like. So I thought at that time, the best thing for me to do was to get her some help, like right then. Yeah. And that's what I did. She went to counseling and received therapy right then.
Okay. How long was she in therapy?
For about a year. She was in therapy for about a year, and she actually did her senior project on children of molestation.
Okay, her senior project in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, do you still love the song "I Love You" that you used to sing in the choir?
I do. I'm very spiritual, even now, and I think that has been me being spiritual got me a long ways. Like knowing that, not everything that you go through is in vain. Like I went through what I went through, but I overcame it. So now I'm able to help somebody else overcome or prevent it from happening to somebody else. So I try not to look at the bad, focus on the bad. I focus on the positive, that I can, in fact, help somebody else.
Yeah. And guys, we've had this increase in suicide attempts and completed suicides amongst Black children. And people are like, what is wrong? Why are our children doing this? Listen, there are reasons. Kids don't just want to kill themselves. You got to talk to your child. Who has touched you? Who has done anything to you? Who has violated you? Ask the questions. Are you being bullied at school? What do you think about your sexuality? You have to ask the hard questions, because a lot of those things are the reasons why children have been attempting and basically completing suicides. Are you still involved in the church? Did you get back into the church?
Yes, I'm still in church. I don't think I would never leave the church. I'm not super religious. Like I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual.
What happened to Hope?
She actually lives in the same town that I live in. She's 75 now.
She is.
And for her 70th, when she turned 70, I'm sorry, they found me. The people from her church found me, and they had me as a special surprise guest for her. And she cried, and cried.
You know she
And I
did.
cried. Yes, I cried because she didn't know what was going on. She had no idea
Oh,
what I was going through. So it was just like, yeah, that was
oh my
it was
God.
emotional, but it was amazing.
Do you think a lot of folks from your church have read the book? From Hope's church, the church you were going to with Hope?
I do. I do. Of course, a lot of them, they were older, so a lot of them are deceased now. But the pastor, he's still living, and he still talk about me when he go across the pulpit and preach. He said, "Where's my Tina?" Because they call me Tina. He says, "Where's my Tina at?" He was like the little girl that would shout and run around the church saying, "I'm a winner." I don't know why I was saying that back then, but I was just run around the church and say, "I'm a winner."
Wow. Do you still sing I Love You?
Not as often, every now and again.
So, what are some last words you would leave with families and children, a teenager who could be listening to this right now? What are some final words to share with them?
Speak up. If somebody is molesting you or touching you in ways that make you feel uncomfortable, talk to somebody. Tell somebody what they're doing. And if your mom or your father, if they're not listening, you tell someone who will listen, because it's not okay for someone to touch you inappropriately, especially if you don't want it. It's not okay. And to for the adults, take the time to heal. I'm a big advocate on therapy. um Take the time to find yourself, love yourself unconditionally, because when you love yourself, you will not go through or accept half the things that I accepted in the book as an adult. You wouldn't do it. When you don't truly love yourself, you begin to negotiate your worth for a temporary feeling, if that makes sense. Like, I was willing to negotiate who I was, my worth, to different men just to feel love. And like I said before, I was looking for someone to save me from me. And I didn't realize until later I was the only one that could do that, because what I was fighting was within me. So
Mhm.
take the time to heal, love yourself, love yourself, love yourself, love yourself unconditionally, because you teach people how to treat you by what you allow.
And I just want to say, I definitely understand and appreciate what you're saying. Sometimes folks are dealt a hand, and there's nothing you can do about it. It feels like in the moment. I mean, when you were 13 and wanted to have a baby, you had been tortured and molested for 6, 7 years leading up to that point. Your little child brain did not know any better, and I'm making an excuse for you being 13 and wanting a baby. No one loved you. No one was loving you properly, I should say. They may have felt like they were loving you, but your mother and your father didn't know how to show you love and didn't show you love. And so, and to be age 7, because the molestation started when you were 7, I believe, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And not know where to turn, what to do, who to tell. It's by the grace of God that you were able to endure and overcome the things that you were faced with. Um, your story is like a story of a miracle, because to be so young, you guys were impoverished, you didn't have anything, your mother had also been abused, there were so many generational curses around you. You couldn't sleep in your own grandparents' house without fearing someone would touch you and violate you. Like, I don't know what that feels like. So it's just, and then once you got to the point of being an adult and you can look back on it now and say, okay, this is what my older self would tell my younger self, is to love me. Like, wow, that's so mature of you to say.
Thank you.
And the fact that you're not, you are truly healed because you're not blaming others. You're not blaming others. You just see it as, I think you do see it as, this is the hand you were dealt, and you're going to play it the best way you can.
And once you encounter, when you go on that self-reflection, a self-reflection journey, once you forgive and you encounter peace and joy, like you would not negotiate it, you would not compromise that, and you would not let anyone come and take that away from you, because it's like the best feeling in the world when you just have peace. Peace. It's so amazing.
Yeah. Peace is amazing, y'all. So do what you got to do to implement self-care, take care of yourself, communicate well, love yourself, love your family, take care of you first, because if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of others.
I agree.
Well, I definitely enjoyed talking to you today. Thank you so much for sharing your pearls of wisdom and sharing your history with all of us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
You are so welcome. And guys, please support Shenita James. Read her story because it may help you in finding a way to tell your own story. 1 in 4 Black women have been sexually abused, molested as children. 1 in 4 Black women. 1 in 4. Keep your babies safe. Keep your children safe. Don't trust the family member just because it's your brother. Doesn't mean that he ain't off. You know, don't trust family members just because they're family. Don't trust people by default. You got to say things to them too. Sometimes it's just not your kids you have to talk to. You got to talk to family also. Like, hey, I don't let people bounce my son or my daughter on their knee. We don't play horsey horse around here. Hey, don't hug my daughter that way. When you hug her, your hands stay up here on her back. You know, you may have to have these types of conversations with family members so that they know you're vigilant, so they know you're paying attention, because it makes it less likely that someone will try to take advantage of your children or rape or abuse your children. Let's talk about these things openly. So anyhow, I hope this was helpful for some people, and maybe this is a story you can share with your child. If you have a teenager or an adolescent who's going through a difficult time, this may make it more possible for you to talk to your son or your daughter to see what's going on with them. Guys, continue to follow the Brain Love podcast as well as my YouTube channel, Dr. Delvina Thomas. I'm just trying to share information about the brain, y'all. That's all. All right. Say brain love, Miss Jane.
Brain up.